So, story time. When I was 18, I had just moved to Brisbane and I rented this shitty ground floor apartment next to a train station. My housemate was away for the weekend and I was working night shift at a hospital while doing uni basically full time during the day, working to be a lab scientist. One night I got home after a long shift at like 1 a.m. in the morning, locked up and just fucking crashed out on my bed. When I woke up a few hours later to get a drink of water, I went to the kitchen and everything felt like off. And I looked around and some stuff had been moved, but like by centimeters, right? Not like nothing major. My fucking wallet was still on the bench. My TV was still there. My Xbox was still there. But the lamp had moved a little bit and stuff had been moved in the kitchen. So I went to the back door and I noticed that it was just wide the fuck open. Like it was just left open. And there was a section of fly screen missing that had been cut out and someone had used a tool to slide through there and get the latch and unhook it, basically unlocking my door. Like it was shitty security in a shitty apartment. Straight away I was fucking spooked. I like went into like a fucking wrestling Scooby-Doo sneak stance because I had no idea if they were still in the house, right? Next to the door that they'd come in was still a bunch of valuable shit that they hadn't touched. So I had no fucking idea what they wanted. I had no idea if they were even interested in taking shit from my house. So I started sneaking around as if they wouldn't hear me coming or have heard me woke up. But they seemed to have split, right? By the time I looked around at all the rooms, they had gone. But the worst thing was that I went back into my bedroom and my laptop had been taken, which is like, yes, that's shit because I'm at uni or whatever. But the problem was, a couple of nights before, I'd been using my laptop to watch Netflix, and I'd stopped and put it under my bed, so I'm sleeping like this. I'd put the laptop under my bed so I didn't step on it when I got out of bed in the morning. So this person had come into my house, taken some cash out of my wallet, raided my fridge for booze, crept into my bedroom while I slept, crouched down inches from my fucking face, reached under my bed while I slept and pulled my laptop out. And you know, when that happens, you're like, oh, you could have just fucking killed me. Like there was some unknown person right there who could have just fucking snuffed me out right then and there. This movie has a scene in it that is really much, like pretty much bang on like that. And it took me straight back there, right? When someone breaks into your house, when your house gets invaded by someone you don't know, it's your only safe spot for most people. And it's just been fucking contaminated by someone else, right? I did not feel safe in that house. I was like, oh fuck. Like for a couple of days too, they had to replace the locks. Like I was like, oh good, I'm just fucking a sitting duck. Are they going to come back? Like what the fuck am I going to do? You know, and it's really, really fucking creepy. And this film took me back there. So as a slasher, a home invasion slasher, it is effective. And you don't have to worry about me. The cops couldn't do shit, but everything's fine now. I've got my own house and I've got really big fucking dogs. So I'm good. But this is an effective slasher movie. That is all to say. I felt it. I felt the same fucking feeling. Also, shout out to Marcus for recommending this movie. I knew it was going to be good because he recommended it. So I wanted to wait until Spooktober to watch it because I thought, you know, if it's good, fucking keep it if you can. Now, writer Kevin Williamson is fucking genius for how he wrote this movie because the movie is about a slasher set during the pandemic and I can't tell which side of the aisle he falls on, right? Like, is he on Joe Rogan's team or is he on Dr. Fauci's team? And I know that the world is not split into those, but in the media, that's how it felt. Almost everyone in this movie is following really strict COVID protocols. So you're like, okay, this guy gets it. You know, like this guy is thinking that way. Like he is that way leaning, following the rules leaning. But then they all get brutally murdered, and the murders are so like brutal that they're a bit tongue in cheek. So by the end of it, you're like, I have no fucking idea. Like, do you not like the people wearing masks, or do you know what I mean? Like. Or either, you know. So basically what I'm trying to say is, regardless of what political spectrum you fall on in terms of the COVID pandemic, if you like slashers, you will probably like this film. I fucking loved it. It's just teens in a house trying to survive a masked killer, right? And I saw a lot of online reviews saying like, "Oh, this is a pretty generic slasher. It didn't do anything groundbreaking. It doesn't do anything. It's pretty formulaic." That's why I love this film. Also, Kevin Williamson, who wrote this film, he wrote the original Scream, Scream 2, The Faculty, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Right? This guy knows how to write teen slashers. And he does put some interesting plot points sprinkled in. Sick fits perfectly in with those aforementioned films. The pacing's great. The whole movie's fucking 80 minutes. There's plenty of blood flowing. There's a ton of fucking stabbings. Like, what more do you want in a slasher? Up close and personal. Sick follows two teens, Parker and her best friend Miri, as they decide to quarantine at Parker's family's house in the height of the COVID pandemic. Now, this house is fucking phenomenal. It could be in an episode of Grand Designs. It's like, it's modern, but it's rustic, and it's fucking massive, and it's on a lake. I would love to spend a weekend there, serial killer or not. But unfortunately for these guys, this fucking psycho has taken an interest in him, and he just refuses to socially distance this motherfucker. He's coming with his knives, and he's coming hard. And as they fight to survive, the killer's motives sort of unfurl, and it's just an extremely bloody and fun time that moves at a clip. One of the things I really like in this movie is that pretty much everyone fights back. There is not a lot of running away. There is not a lot of, like, you know, that deer in the headlights thing that some, you know, in a couple of Screams, the later Screams, there's been that, like a serial killer comes out and they just go like, oh. Nah, everyone in this fights back. They just start fucking swinging as soon as the killer jumps on them. The first scene in this movie involves like a fight sequence with the killer and this dude in an apartment, and it was so good. Like, they're like grappling and they're bashing each other against walls. The guy pulls down and fucking hits an elbow, like a Muay Thai elbow, and I couldn't, like, it drew the ooey out of me. Like, it was that fucking good. And it was so unexpected. And at multiple points in this movie, the killer bails to regroup, which I really liked, because I love my Jasons and I love my Michael Myers and their supernatural serial killer strength. But sometimes you just want to see an average Joe take a fucking crack at it. And this movie does that really well. He's opportunistic because he's just a dude, right? This guy is just a dude. So he uses whatever is around. Like, at one scene, he literally just he doesn't know what to do. He just picks up a fucking rock and goes, all right, and just pegs it. You know, like, sometimes if you're an average dude, sometimes you just gotta yeet a fucking rock. Like, that's your only option. The characters in this too are also really solid for a slasher. Gideon Adelon, who plays Parker, is great. Fun fact, her mum is Pamela Adelon, who is Bobby Hill in King of the Hill, and also Marcy Runkle in Californication, who is one of my favorite characters in that series. And none of them do particularly dumb decisions. And the risky decisions that they do take is because they get pushed into those circumstances. So you're like, oh yeah, that's fine. They even have a character that I did not fucking like do some really heroic shit. And I'm like, I'm a sucker for a bit of character redemption. So I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. Fair enough. The only problem I can see some people having with this is that there are some scenes that drift into a dark comedy more than a slasher. It's definitely poking fun at the craziness that was the COVID pandemic rules, especially the early days where no one knew what the fuck was going on. It was like everyone was treating it like it was Ebola or something. It's not as funny as Scream, but it's a really good homage to Scream because there's a lot of like, who's this on the phone and that sort of shit. But if you like slashers, you'll have a good time with this one. I think most people who like slashers will get something out of this. I recommend watching this if you like slashers with a bit of comedy in them. Your screams, you know, your totally killers, that sort of thing. Freaky even a little bit, like, it's that sort of thing. If you love any of Kevin Williamson's other movies that he wrote, you know, Scream, Scream 2, Faculty, I Know What You Did Last Summer, this is right in the mix with those. If you want to see a slasher where everyone has a bit of fight in them, I fucking love that. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, swing on him. Like, you wouldn't just, don't take it laying down, swing. This does that really well. I don't recommend watching this if you hate slashers. This is pretty much straight up a slasher with some comedy elements in it. I also don't recommend this if you're sick of pandemic themed content. I know, like, sometimes I listen to podcasts and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I get it, COVID happened. I just want to escape that shit. I get it. It was everywhere. We were inundated with COVID themed material. You need a break. This is very COVID themed. Everyone's wearing a mask and wiping shit down with Dettol and doing all that. If you are a slasher fan, let me know who your favorite is. Like, I'm a Jason and Scream guy myself. But I know people ride hard for Michael Myers or fucking Johnny from Inviolate Nature. Tell me who your favorite slasher is, because I like a good slasher. If you like this movie and you want characters with even more fight in them, I highly, highly recommend the 2010 slasher, or anti-slasher, I guess, depending on how you think of it, You're Next. It's about a girl named Erin who goes to her wealthy in-laws for a dinner party and home invaders crash it. Unfortunately for them, Erin's sort of like if Macaulay Culkin was raised in the outback by fucking hunters and trappers. Like, it's so sick. She's fucking brutal. She's one of the best horror protagonists ever, I reckon. It's one of my all-time favorites, and it is a modern classic. Like, I elevate it into modern classic. Another pick is the 2016 film Hush. It's a slasher, but it does things a bit differently. It's Mike Flanagan directed, and it follows deaf-mute writer Maddie, played by his lovely wife and horror darling Katie Siegel, who goes into like an isolated cabin because she's got writer's block and she wants to overcome it. A masked killer rocks up and begins to fuck with her for a bit. She doesn't realise because she's deaf. And yeah, once the killer realises what's going on, shit gets fucking wild. This movie absolutely slaps, and some of the scenes are so tense because Maddie doesn't know how much noise she's making. So she's like, there's a bit of tension there because it's like, she's like, oh, I'm being very quiet. And you're like, lady, what are you, an elephant? Why are you fucking making so much noise? It's really, really good, and I believe it's just come to Shudder because it was in limbo for a bit. It was on Netflix and then it got taken off and no one had it. Like, you couldn't get it anywhere. But they've just re-added it to Shudder. So I highly, highly, highly recommend Hush. It plays with sound and lack of sound, just sound design in general, so beautifully. As always, thanks for watching, and remember, if you do want to follow along with my Spooktober Watchfest, I'm doing a review every fucking day for a movie I haven't seen, and watching them daily. It's a lot of work. Subscribe and hit the bell. That is the easiest way to do it. Tomorrow I'll be covering the Netflix 2023 absurdist fantasy horror comedy with Nick Cage. They're like all my favorite fucking words pushed together. Dream Scenario. So hopefully I'll see you there for that one. Peace.